Oscar Piastri has had a blinding start to the 2025 Formula 1 season. 4 wins in 7 races, 13 points ahead of his teammate Lando Norris, 22 ahead of the ever-present Max Verstappen. Thing is, it could have been more in Imola, couldn't it? Because he did the hard work on Saturday but wasn't able to convert the race win from pole position. And a big part of why was the move Max put on him into turn 1. Development doesn't come without making mistakes. Could he have done more? Absolutely. Will he have learnt his lesson? I think so. My name's Tommo. Let's talk about it. I'll tell you what, Imola might only have one proper overtaking opportunity, but that turn 1, 2, 3 section is a hell of a decent one, I've got to say. Super high speed into the braking zone, wide enough to go side by side, and when it goes wrong in a big way. To be honest, I've never been a great lover of Imola as a circuit. I don't have that attachment to it personally, but if we do lose it from this F1 calendar, which it's looking like this might be the last race at Imola for a long time, we've had many a memorable battle, many a memorable move, many a memorable shunt. Now, just as a quick refresher, the rules around wheel-to-wheel combat were adjusted by the FIA, going from 24 into 25. In short, the overtaking driver has priority. If you're overtaking on the inside, you must have your front axle at least alongside the other car's mirror prior to and at the apex, be in control at all times, and take a reasonable line to keep within track limits. If you're overtaking on the outside, you must have your front axle ahead of the other car's front axle at the apex, be in control, and take a reasonable line to keep within track limits. I've said it before, I'll say it again, I do not agree fundamentally with these black and white rules, never have done. I don't think I ever will. There's too much grey area in motorsport to approach it from this point of view, in my opinion. I think the way we should do it is have a bunch of consistent stewards every weekend who are the same ex-F1 drivers, using their professional perception to make judgment calls and listening to the feedback of the drivers and working more in collaboration so that there's a general understanding of what's going on. There's gonna be tight marginal decisions that you can have, a couple of stewards going one way, a couple going the other. That's normal in sport. That's going to happen. But trying to rigidly define every single instance with wheels and apexes and mirrors alongside, I think it's a bit of a fool's errand. Anyway, I mentioned these racing rules because going into turn 1 at Imola, Piastri on pole, Max behind, I was almost certain there was going to be something contentious going on once again. And there wasn't. Max got the move done cleanly and fairly, but I'm pretty sure Oscar will reflect on that and think what he could have done better. When asked if Max's move into turn 1 surprised him, well, the Australian's answer was very simple, very on brand. Yeah. I thought I had it pretty under control. It was a good move from Max. We'll learn for next time, clearly. And I'm not surprised that Oscar was, well, surprised. He put in very little fight, uncharacteristically, especially when you compare it to the pretty robust defence he gave in Saudi Arabia. Very much on the line, but very much within the rules. In fact, George Russell was fuming with Oscar at the time, wasn't he? Saying, Piastri, what is he doing? And that was nothing to do with him being unfair on the Brit. It seemed entirely to do with Oscar giving too much space for Max to take that opportunity, seize that moment and drive off into the distance. Oscar afforded him that opportunity to pull that move and George saw it coming. Looking at George's onboard, he got an unbelievable launch. He was on Piastri's gearbox pronto, and that captivated Oscar's full attention. Max had essentially fallen down to P3 off the start, and yeah, perhaps naivety, I'm not sure what it was in the moment. You just leave that gap on the outside for Max on the fresh rubber. You're asking for trouble, Oscar. In the end, George was running so close behind Oscar that he actually got out of the throttle and onto the brakes pretty early. Now, if Oscar had considered George dealt with and moved his focus onto Max and moved over to right to try and block that outside lane, would Max have been able to switch it to the inside? I don't think he would have. Ultimately, George was right there behind Oscar, so didn't really give a space for Max to place his car on the inside. I don't think Max would have pulled off that move because of George's presence there. But no matter, right? Because Oscar's got the inside line, Max is running P3, George he's got dealt with. He can just carry loads of speed into turn 1, make full use of the width of the track, and there's no way Max gets past. That's not how he did it, is it? He left Max room to sweep around the outside and take the lead. Now, let me avoid any doubt here. I want to make it absolutely clear that actually this side-by-side racing and giving a car's width to a driver attacking around the outside is exactly what I want to see from racing, what I think fair racing is when you look at all other disciplines of motorsport. Cars should be able to go side by side, corner after corner, and not be forcing each other off the track. Okay, it was a great move. It was a clean move. It was what I want to see more of in Formula One. Oscar gave Max the space and Max took the position, and it was very fair and it was very clean. What racing should be, but not what these rules encourage. And you know full well, if the roles were reversed, there's no way Max is leaving Oscar room on the outside. But you can't begrudge Max for that, because that is the writing of the rules. And if you want to win world championships, you have to play to the rules that are in front of you, whether you agree with them or not. The way I see it, looking at Oscar's line, his trajectory, he thought the job was done. He said this after, the race. He wasn't expecting, he was surprised that Max was going to be on the outside. He thought the job was done and took the line he took to try and open up turn 2, because if you run wide into turn 1, that compromises your line through 2, right? He thought, job done, happy days, I don't have to worry about anyone behind me, I'm just going to take it easy into 1 and then open up turn 2 and drive off into the distance. And then all of a sudden, Max Verstappen's right there in your mirrors, he's ahead of you, he's gone into the distance, and Oscar's a bit shell-shocked, In fact, we saw drivers try that switchback, didn't we? Lando and George, their fight on lap 11, where George kind of compromised himself into 1, Lando stayed on the outside, and then Lando got a run and was able to make an overtake further down into the kind of 4-5 chicane. Again, the way them two raced into turn 1 is what I think racing should be more often. However, within these rules, Oscar should have carried more speed into that corner, committed more on the brakes, not worried so much about opening up turn 2, and just made sure that he was ahead. He would have been ahead at the apex if he'd carried more speed. He would have pushed Max off the track, and it would have been fair within the rules. And that's what you need to do to win world championships. Again, I don't agree with it, but that's what Oscar should have done to win the race. Well, maybe McLaren still would have pitted Oscar for the 2-stop, which was of course the wrong strategy, in which case then probably Lando would have won the race, because if Oscar had pushed Max off, then Max would have gone into the gravel like Albon did later in the race and lost positions, because this is lap 1, right? Max would have dropped like a stone. Max went hell for leather, trusted that either Oscar would give him space, which I don't think he would have expected him to give him space, or just being caught off guard by Max being there in the first place. And that's exactly what happened. That's why he got the space, because Oscar didn't see it coming. No one is better than Max Verstappen at pushing these rules to the absolute limit, and unless you're going to do the same back to him, he's going to beat you. Because actually, coming off the line, Max was, again, pretty average. He was behind George. George just had a blinding start. It was a shame for George, because I predicted him to win the race this weekend. Even if he'd got ahead, the Mercedes tyre deg was disgusting, so that wouldn't have happened. But a man can dream. And at no point ahead of the braking zone was Max anywhere near alongside Oscar. That's what makes it such an unbelievable move. And of course he had to pay attention behind him, right? It's not like Max is only looking forward. He's got another papaya car in his rear view mirrors, and if he gives any kind of concession, doesn't focus enough on behind him, too much in front of him, there's always a chance someone behind has a go. Verstappen's car positioning was perfect, right? Because he didn't allow George the space to utilise the great start he had to get alongside Oscar, because Max was enough there that George couldn't just drive across. And then he didn't give enough space on his right to allow Lando, if Lando had got a really good start, which he got an okay start, but nothing crazy special, to get around the outside of Max. He positioned his car perfectly to then see this opportunity open up and seize the moment. And to be honest, my first instinct when I saw Max throwing it around the outside with Oscar is like, right, we're in Saudi Arabia all over again. Max is carrying way too much speed into the corner just to try and get ahead at the apex and then try and call foul. And then he just kept turning, and he just kept turning, and he made the corner, actually with a decent amount of margin in hand. Not loads, of course, this is all relatively speaking, but yeah, Max quite comfortably made that corner. I mean, he made it look comfortable, should I say. I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's one thing for Oscar to be a bit naive, a bit cautious on the brakes and afford Max space on the outside, on the grippier line, right, that's been rubbered in. But it's another thing for Max to actually pull the move off on the brakes. Christian Horner said after the race it was win it or bin it, and I think that's a very good way of summarising it. It was super calculated, it was risky, but that's what makes it such an impressive move. So many things could have gone wrong there. He could have snatched a break, and then he's on the gravel and his race is ruined, but he pulled it off, and that's what the top, the best, the Sennas, the Schumachers, the Hamiltons, that's what these guys can do. And we know that seizing the moment, getting ahead, getting in that clean air was going to pay dividends. We've talked about this before, how I think drivers are going to be prepared to cop 5-second penalties if it means they can get ahead and stay ahead. It was an absolute necessity for Max to get ahead and put Oscar in the dirty air, and then Max is just able to be like an alien and just punch out lap after lap after lap with just in mad consistency, right? And sure, he got a bit lucky with VSC and SC, but all that did is make the gap bigger. And even without that luck, he still would have won that race pretty comfortably because he got the job done turn 1. But this is something really good about turn 1 at Imola, because you have that gravel on the outside. You can't get drivers taking the outside line, carrying too much speed, cutting the corner in order to stay ahead, which is what I feel Max did in Saudi. You have to do it properly, otherwise you're going to be the fall guy, right? Look in 21 when Hamilton's on the outside of Max, Hamilton gets pushed wide, it's Hamilton's race that gets hurt way more. Albon and Charles, Charles sends him to the outside, Alex loses position to Lewis and Charles in that moment. Max had everything to lose. The only way you get ahead of Oscar in that moment is to just nail the move perfectly. The way that Charles reacted when he said on the radio, this is the way we're meant to go racing now. I don't think Charles believes he should be able to push Alex off the track, and would he have got a penalty or not? We don't know, because Ferrari told him to give back the position. But I don't think that's the way Charles wants to go racing. I don't think that's the way any of these drivers want to go racing in an ideal world. But if the rules are enabling this and allowing them to do it, if you're not pushing the boundaries, it's the same with the teams in car development. If you're not pushing and on the edge of legality basically at all times, then you're going to lose, you're going to miss out, you're going to not optimize because another team's going to beat you to the punch. And it's exactly the same with the drivers on track. It's their job to absolutely push the limits, and sometimes you're just going to step over. Of course you are, you're only human. Well done, Imola. You gave us a very decent final Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix for the foreseeable future, seemingly not confirmed, but probably. I'd be happy if it's replaced by a Hockenheim or a Kyle Army. If it's a street circuit, then no, but I guess we'll see, won't we? That Max overtake will be a mainstay in his highlight reels for many years to come, I'm sure. And Oscar, my self-aware king, he said it himself, we'll learn for next time. Imola was the 53rd start of Oscar Piastri's Formula 1 career. As for Max, it was his 216th. With experience comes wisdom, and I've got no doubt in my mind that Oscar and his team will be breaking down what exactly happened and how he can make sure within the rules, that again I don't agree with, but the rules are what they are, he can make sure that doesn't happen again. I reckon he's got it in him. Max pulled one over on him this time. Let's see what Oscar's got in response. My name's Tommo. Thanks again. Have a good one. Ta-da.